with many accidents, and especially when they are youth, very young age and very tragic, so it need to take some of the priority. And before we start, maybe important also as a reminder for us how to see how we can even avoid some of the accidents. Before we used to announce and say no motorcycles for the youth, we're not going to pray. Now even with the racing, it become very popular. So there are some apps that the parents can have that can watch and monitor the youth if they are not driving safe. And also there are some of the cars now that they have that you can set maximum speed. So some of the parents were saying this. This is some advice that we can do to minimize, because unfortunately now there's many accidents. It's not just one, but if we can prevent, we do with parents or servants or with the youth as much as we can, because there's no second chance sometimes for something like this. So of course you need your prayers for the families and for the youth. Some of them are still struggling very much, and so this is the time where all of the prayers Abuna was telling me, they have many calls and support and prayers from all over the world, not just in the diocese. So we hope and pray for their may God strengthen them and comfort them and repose their souls in the bosom of our Holy Fathers. So that was the reason why I delayed the meeting. And the meeting originally, I would give a spiritual word and then have some of the arrangements in the service. I will be helping here, taking from His Eminence direction to be responsible for the service and the Sunday school service in this period, just to help to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And that's why I asked just to meet with the servants this time. And it will be ongoing for some time, so if there's an issue, let me know, and I also will try to communicate together. This topic, that just very brief, hopefully it won't be too long, is what we will have in the Sunday school, in the servant retreat that we have this weekend. And I know many of you are not able to make it, so this is just one of the talks that I felt may be helpful. It's not targeted in any way, but I feel is a common theme in the life of the servant. Just to give you an idea, this year, because it's the Council of Nicaea, and we said that we would focus on Saint Athanasius. So for Karaz, for Koji, and for spiritual competition, for all, I say this is the theme for our year. And when it come to the first time we do a servant retreat, so he said we dedicated the whole retreat for the model of Saint Athanasius. And we took different examples, how his example in prayer, how his example in teaching, how his example in struggling, because he was in different ways. And one of the major struggle that he had is in exile. So I took this as one of the lessons that you see in the pastoral letters. So he wrote festal letters every year before the feast and before the fast, to announce when we start fasting and when we... And in this, I was giving a paper earlier this year about how we see how he's a father and how he's a shepherd in these letters. And one of the themes that we see is how does a servant deal with difficult situation, because he always faced different challenges. And I think we don't actually speak about this very much. We speak about him more in the Council of Nicaea, but what happened to him after the Council of Nicaea is not like everyone is rejoicing with him. On the opposite, there was a lot of persecution. And he spent 17 years of his years in exile. So I wanted to give one talk about the 17 years, just briefly. And St. Gregory, he says, that when I praise Saint Athanasius, it's like all of the virtue that we praise him in. And whether it's his mind, whether it's his love, whether it's his forgiveness, whether it's his wisdom, he started to go on, and he didn't. This is my problem with Saint Athanasius. It's hard to stop. Like that's why I said we try to we'll try to keep it 30 minutes or 40 minutes. But when you start to open with Saint Athanasius, you find there's no end. He could write one sentence, and you find 10 sentences from him. So he write, for example, one of the scholars said, when Saint Athanasius write one sentence, Saint Cyril, he write 10 sentences based on the one sentence. But so if you understand Saint Athanasius, he opened your mind very large. I gave example in when I was in studying. We had one class that was offered just on Saint Athanasius, but it was in a Catholic school. So I had to go to the school. We left. I was studying in an Orthodox school. They went to a Catholic school every week, once a week, to study. And the one who was teaching, he was Egyptian. And then I found out that he used to be Muslim. God appeared to him in a unique way. He converted. And then when he converted, because the political situation, he went through the Catholic Church, not the Coptic Church, because they could have. It's a long story, but the important thing is when he became Christian, he decided to study Saint Athanasius, and so much that he became one of the world expert in Saint Athanasius. And turns out he was teaching this class in Saint Athanasius. So I went with now one of the priests, and we would go there. We found a group of people, collection from different areas. Some are one or two Orthodox, some Catholic, some Protestant, some they don't know. They don't even know. They're searching. They say they're searching. So we start in the beginning to speak about Saint Athanasius. Then we have a discussion about the resurrection. I remember 30 minutes. So I went to Abuna Daniel. He's next to me. He said, "We're talking about the resurrection. I'm here. I want to know about Saint Athanasius." And they say, "Did the resurrection happen?" I said, "This is very." For me, I need this part. I don't need this. So anyways, in the middle of the lecture, so 15 weeks, 16 weeks, it was for Holy Week. So I went to the professor, told him I can't attend this week. I have to be in the class. He said, "No, you have to come." I said, "It's hard for me if I'm Monday and Tuesday, and then I come Wednesday, and I go back." He said, "No, you have to come." So I said, "Okay." So we got to speak that week was about the life of Antony. So in the beginning, the professor asked, "I need to see anyone have a comment before we start the lecture." So everyone raised their hand, first time. So he said, "Okay, no, I need to hear from the people. They read this for the first time." So most of the people, the people who were questioning about the resurrection, when it came to this, they start to speak like they're Saint Athanasius, one after the next. So I went to Bunada. I said, "What happened?" They all sound Orthodox. And one of the reasons was because of the way that Saint Athanasius present the resurrection, the life of Saint Anthony, how to live a holy life. They changed. Like in front of, I would say, within 1 month. I said, how he make them Orthodox. The ones who didn't believe in the resurrection, now they are preaching the resurrection. So Saint Gregory, he says this is similar to him. Saint Athanasius, already I think between all of the things we did this year, you probably memorized the life. But I'll give you the background. These are the 5 exiles, and some of them are longer than other. Like every time the emperor exile him, either the emperor dies, or there's a shift, or someone conquer him, and there's next. And he had different periods of time. Like one of them, you see, the second one of the longest for 17 years, and there's others that are just for a few months in the tomb, and also in different places. So we learn from this that the servant, sometimes we have one major service, But sometimes God will ask us, even in exile, say, why was he in exile? Was it just punishment? Was it for him to rest? Was it for him to observe? If you look at the meaning, like someone asked him, in the second exile, someone was very upset. He was like very passionate. So he found St. Athanasius, walking quietly. So he said, how can you be so patient? The church is divided. They're bringing in an alternative patriarch. They did this to the cathedral. He started to rile up. So St. Athanasius smiled at him. He said, and you're smiling? Like all of this. Because he wants him, that we have those people. And there's this problem. So he smiled. So he said a famous sentence after this. He said, this is a light cloud and it will pass away. He said after he said this, the emperor died and he returned from exile. There was another time in exile where he was walking just in one road. I think it's in Bulgaria. Walking in one road. So they know that St. Athanasius was walking in this one road. They say, okay, very simple. He walked in many places. What did they do? But they built 4 or 5 churches around this road and they're all named St. Athanasius. Just because he walked in the road. I use this example, and the churches are still there today. I am trying to find a way to go see them. But why is it important? Because this was the reason for the exile, one of the reasons. God allowed him to be in exile so he can convert the people from Arianism to Orthodoxy. And if he wasn't there, it wouldn't have the same impact. Sometimes, like I was saying, when I was studying, I spent at one point more time outside the diocese as a priest than inside as a priest. And I went to Satan once. I said, I can't. When St. Anthony says fish out of water, he said, I can't survive outside. He said, finish and come. But sometimes the servant, you find we are away in different part in the service, but it's for the service, not against the service. And so this is one of the benefits for the servant in exile. The third one, not just from outside, but even from within. There was some time when St. Athanasius, he was in the desert, in Thebes. If you look here in the third exile, and also in the fourth exile, that he spent much time in Upper Egypt with St. Pachomius, and there was a very beautiful letter description. They said when St. Athanasius arrived in the area in the Thebaid in Upper Egypt, it said he went and they have a lantern. So if you look from above, there was one light that came into the area for the monks. And then they found one small light coming from a cave, and they found to the St. Athanasius. And then another one, until you found all of the area was full of light. And then they went into one area, so they meet with the patriarch the first time. Like the Pope in these days doesn't go to Upper Egypt unless there's because he's going to take weeks to get there, so it didn't happen. If they need something, they go to him, unless there's something very urgent. So because he was in Upper Egypt after a while, all of the monks, the same thing, they became very orthodox, because if there was an incorrect teaching, he was able to correct it. And he was the closest to the monks, and I'll give you an example later of one of them. So he would continue to write to them. So sometimes even in the service, we see that God will be encouraging us to do something far, something strange, something that is not normal, for the growth and the glory, but a way that we don't plan it. Like sometimes we like to plan, and what happens is the opposite. Like many times in the service, I would try to do, I'm going to do this program, I plan maybe for one, and then all of a sudden something happened, I can't do the program, I have to do, and then something else happens that I didn't plan, and it becomes much, much better. That's why we offer all the service to God, and we see how He arranged. We say, manage our life as you deem fit. So St. Athanasius' life was submitted to God. He didn't even tell God, I need to go here, I need to go. Sometimes St. Paul would do the same thing. You say, I want to go to Rome, God told him, no, not now. He said, I have to go to, and he started to write to them. When did he go to Rome? At the end of his life. He was going to be martyred there. So the end, which is why the Catholic Church was one of the first churches they have, it's still today, because of his martyrdom there. And if he went early, probably he'd be martyred. We don't know exactly, but probably be martyred early. So it was in the timing of God. But he had the desire from before. Or like we see in the book of Acts, when he wanted to go to Asia, he was going to the east. And then in Macedonia, the one appeared to him, he said, you have to come to us, help us in northern Greece. His plan, he wasn't go east. So you know the story. So afterwards, he woke up next day, okay, we're going to the north. So how the servant, my life is guided by God and submitting to God, even to those in authority, like you say, submit to the emperor. We said, but the emperor is against you, he wants to kill you. St. Athanasius said, if God wants him to kill me, he will, but he knows I still have work to do. I need to be here, so God will either save me from the emperor or the emperor is going to go. And that would happen all the time. After the first time, he learned the lesson. 3, 4, 5. He said, okay, enough. Until they were afraid to touch this man. They said, don't do anything to this one, because we can't. We don't have the authority. So as you know, this is what he did. Also, the suffering of St. Athanasius prevented the suffering of the people. Like when they want to target the church, just like His Holiness Pope Shenouda, when they put him under house arrest, one of the reasons he said, for the safety of the church. Because if he were fighting against the government was going to fight against and do many difficult things. But when he was under house arrest, he was still controlling, with the grace of God, the church. And it was it was a very unique time in the church. Although I know some servants, they came when they decreed that the Pope be in house arrest, the servants were in the streets crying, and the priests. So it didn't happen in the modern time. Now they call Pope Shenouda the new Athanasius of the 20th century, because it was similar. Thank you. These examples, I'll just go quickly through it. And he understood that his suffering as the shepherd was similar to the suffering of Christ. Saint Cyril of Alexandria, most of his is different than Saint Athanasius, because he came 100 years after. So he wasn't in exile in the same way. There was a short period of time after the Council of Ephesus that he was imprisoned. I think it's a few months. But for him, like, it was very, very big. It was the first time and the only time. And Pope Celestine, he is the Pope of the Catholic Church at the same time. He wrote to him a letter. And in the letter, he was saying, we know your sufferings. We know your difficulty. We know but you have the wounds of Christ, because you suffered like with Christ, and now Christ will glorify you in the same way. And it was true. Actually, they became very close. Probably the last time that in the history before the council that the popes were that close was the time of Saint. In fact, the church wanted to emphasize it, so on the departure of Saint Cyril in July 10th, they added Saint Celestine. So they're both mentioned. So one of the gifts we gave Pope Francis the last time, it was an icon of the two. Like, this was the picture of the last time we're able to work together very good, and hopefully to be a model to see how we can work in the future. Because to have an argument is very easy. To fix an argument, it takes sometimes a long time. And when it comes to the churches, it takes us hundreds of years. Like, hopefully, like with when we have small argument, we fix it very quickly. But when it's something like this and related to the faith and all of the history, is very, very complicated. Okay, I will jump to. Also, what he was in the exile. You think that he was just running to survive. Actually, it was the most time that Saint Athanasius wrote. Like, probably Life of Antony, probably against the Arians, probably some of the commentaries. We don't have all of his writings. Definitely, many of the letters were written in exile. And when you see the like the scale, sometimes we thank God for these problems, because if it wasn't for the exile, we wouldn't have this from Saint Athanasius. The same thing we can say for the letters of Saint Paul, because Saint Paul, when there was a big problem, he wrote to them. One time, Abuna Tadris Malati, he said, we thank the Church of Corinth for all of its problems, because if it wasn't such problematic church, we wouldn't have the book of Corinthians, which shows us all about love and about patience and about the spirits and about many things in the church. We learn from the book of Corinthians. That's 1st and 2nd Corinthians. So I was taking, because we get this question, especially from some of the new servants, and in confession, we get a lot of them, like, what not to do in the service in the time of exile. Because some people misinterpret what is exile. So I always tell them in the beginning, don't leave. A servant doesn't leave the service, but is reassigned a service. And there's a difference. Like someone says, okay, I'm fed up, I leave. But that's not what happened to St. Athanasius. St. Athanasius, he's appointed by God. So he was still but he's just in a different place for a certain time to do a certain task. Many times we would have, like say for example in the history of the diocese, or any time, sometimes there's churches that divide, they establish another church. In other churches, they multiply. So we say the churches don't divide, they multiply. It's not because we get into fight, okay, we're going to start our own church. You find in those cases, if it happens, it's the pattern. Like mainly in other places, not in the diocese. Pattern, they didn't get along, they divided, they didn't get along, same thing. That's what happened in the Protestant Reformation. When you look, it started with Martin Luther, and then they had Zwingli, and then they had Calvin and Zwingli. And when they met, they didn't get along, so they started three. Within 500 years, you have 1,500 different groups. So that wasn't the way that the church works. So we always say, sometimes in the service, if we see a problem, we either fight against it or we run away. Some people. And both of them is not the successful servant. It's how that we struggle in the service. And because it's not for us, like it's for the glory of God. I was sitting with the youth a couple of days ago in St. George, and we were telling them, they were saying, asking, do you feel that this is, they were your children? I said, I wanted to tell them that we're not going to I'm not going to put it in the service. But I said, actually, so much so that's why I was sitting with them. And I told them, we want to be with them all the time. I say sometimes we have many other responsibilities in the service, like when I was recently ordained, I promised myself not to spend all my time in meetings. The first 2 years, I spent almost all of it in meetings. So I tried to think, how do I change? So I reduced the meetings. Every time I reduce one meeting, I get two different ones that I didn't plan. But the idea for us is how that God with us in everything that we are doing. One time Pope Shenouda, he was saying that I prefer to be with Christ and live like in quiet, in the cave, praying, meditating, reading. But then someone will need because of the needs of the church, I may spend all the day outside. So he was discussing, he said, what am I supposed to do? And he said, Lord, I want to spend it with you. So the response from the Lord was, but when you are serving my people, I'm with you. You see, I see you in the service. I speak to you in the service. I heal you in the service. So how that we're able to bridge the two, that it's not contradicting. Yes, the servant needs the time for prayer and meditation and reading. Based on this, we serve. But at the same time, even in the service, sometimes we would go to the service and we have a problem, it's troubling me, bothering me, and then one of the kids, out of the mouth of babes, God tell them to give the answer to what the difficulty is. As if God encouraging us, say the answer is the service, not the problem. The servant needs the service for my salvation. And while I am being saved, then help the others in their salvation. That's why I'm concerned when I'm away from the service. Like even sometimes we travel for different things, and we may feel, yes, it's a time for recovery and reading and restoration, but sometimes when it's too long, I say, no, I need to come back, just like you're away from your family, and you're away from your job, you're away from your church, your life, for too much. So this is what we experience in the service. And God always used the situations in the service to help to correct us individually, and also as a group. And when I see this, like, I'm not disturbed. I be praying and fasting and do my matanya as I do. And I go to the church to see what God is going to do as a result. And that's why we say that this is, they call it the harbor of salvation. Like, if the church was not here, I don't know what we would do. You know, there was a time you were telling me, and last time I came, how you were laboring for this church. And I remember in the very early days when we would come and we would see, okay, there were barely communities starting in Oxnard. And Sayyidina always says this. Came a time he said, we don't know if there's going to be a church in Oxnard. We don't know if it's going to work. Because there was a challenge with the priest, challenge with the church, challenge with the money, challenge with everything. So it's one of the few times in the history of the diocese, Sayyidina said, okay, maybe it's not going to work. Then God, you can write the story, but God transformed it. And this is what He does in our life, not just in the one church, but He does that for all of us. Sometimes a servant will be, I don't know if I can continue. We have this. And I can I can write a book about all the problems. But we find God in a very small way can convert the whole thing. You know, one time Tsoni Angel was complaining in the service, you know this story, to Abuna Pshoy Kemet. She was very frustrated. So then Abuna asked her, what's the title of your job again? So she knew what he's trying to say. She didn't want to say it. But she said, how do you say in Arabic? The servant. Yes. I didn't want to say it wrong. So he said, what? I didn't hear you. So he made her say it. He said, okay, so why are you upset? She said, I'm not upset. She said, no, you're upset. But if this is your job, so the way they treat you is not as important. Of course, for us, like the modern example of the priest and of the Tasoni and of the church is, and they said many times, that's why we're blessed in our diocese. The first priest in our diocese was a saint now. And was sent by a saint. So we are very blessed. We remind ourselves. And that's the model that we try to follow as servants. One time I went to sporting, the first time I was in high school, I was asking 100 questions about Abuna Pshoy. So one of the servants, he told me, he said, why do you care about Abuna Pshoy? Did you ever meet him? I said, yes, he was supposed to baptize. We were very young. He said, do you remember him? I said, I remember enough. But he said, why? We know because we're in sporting. So I remember thinking, I said, isn't that the definition of the saint? Like, we didn't meet them. It's not because my friend was Abuna Pshoy or Pope Carlos, but because they serve, and we love the service because of Abuna Pshoy. And the same for sport. Like, you go there, you find everyone. One time one of the bishops, he was asking for a candidate for priesthood. So or was it His Holiness Pope Shin? So the bishop told him, go to St. George Sporting, and just close your eyes and pick any one of the, you find they're ready. because the life of the service, it brings the same. Like I was telling them before coming here, you have the same. You have a blessed church, many serve, everyone's serving. Like you say, no, we don't have. No, if you look at the list compared to them, you all have the spirit of service and very, very strong commitment. So this brings more and more service. That's why the challenges in the service, we need to overcome them, because the devil fights against this more than anything. Because he said, if you can get one or two, then okay, there's lines behind. They used to tell us in the service, your strength, if you are good in the Bible, if you are good in hymns, if you are good in the saints, if you are dedicated to the fathers, all of this, when you are serving, the kids you serve, they take from them. And then they used to warn us. Also the weakness, if you are lazy, if you don't like hymns, if you don't like the prayer, if you don't like the servant, if you don't like this, if you're impatient, whatever it is, be careful. So I used to look at the kids and say, okay, so far so good. I don't see the problem. Just to make sure, like if you get impatient. One time I remember I was, we didn't sleep, because sometimes we would stay up late to pray for them. We stay up late preparing. So when you stay up late or you don't sleep enough, you get to be impatient. So I remember one of the class, I got very frustrated. So one of the kids told me after, this is the first time we saw you upset. So I remember, I have to fix it right away. If that's the lesson they learned today, I failed. So how in the service that we are very careful, not that we're pretending, but very, very sincere. You know, if you spend the whole lessons praying, like I think I told you last time, there's one servant who is giving the lesson, and the other servant is doing 3 things. Was that in this church? Yeah. So I said one of the 3 was praying. So if that servant is praying the whole time, not only they learn the lesson, but they absorb the prayer, like it's not empty prayer. And that's, I see the difference in the churches when I go, and in the Sunday school classes when I go. Like I can tell, even say when the youth meeting, I was in the youth meeting the other day, if I sit with a group of I can tell. Yes, they're very respectful. Yes, they read the Bible. Yes, they know how to pray. Yes, they're familiar with the saints. Yes, they know the church tradition. And sometimes I go to, in a youth meeting, I'm like, okay, no, we need some work. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we need, when we search for the servants, we say, okay, they need to have the love for the saints. So I look for which one? Yeah, this one. Very good. We have to coordinate in this way. So anyways, I took too much time. Some of the lessons that we say we don't change the churches, I gave some examples. Even maybe it's not the right time, but even the saints, I want to say they were asked to leave, but they had difficulties in some churches. Like Saint Verena, for example, in one church they were so upset with her, they kicked her out of the city, not just Switzerland, not in Egypt, in Switzerland. So what happened, she said, I have to leave. She went on the river. They said there was a big stone. She got on the stone and she went until the stone stopped. It stopped in a little island in the river, and she said, okay, I live here. The island's still there. And that was the place where God sent her. So the problem that was in the church was not because there was anything wrong. It was just that God used it. It was one of the ways he used to go to another place. The same with Pope Kyrillos, when he had a problem in Der Ambasmuin, right? So he was trying to solve the problem. It didn't work, so he left with the monks. And then it was the one he ended up how to start in Baramos. Then there was a problem in Baramos. So then he left, and then he went in Old Cairo. But he wasn't the cause of the problem. He was part of the solution. God was using it. So sometimes in the service, we may find the same thing, that God is moving different ways for us to see not just the individual. Sometimes we look on the earthly, but how we can see things in the different perspective. That's why he went to the Tahuna. In that time, he had no place to live, so he's trying to find a place to live. because he has no place. He was staying in one of the churches. They closed the church. They locked the church. He couldn't. He was sleeping outside of the church. You know this, so you read and it's still closed today. Actually, the same church that gave him a hard time, it's still closed. One of the few churches in Egypt like that. So after he was sleeping outside, finally he went in the windmill and he was sleeping, like, as you know, no door, nothing. But what I want to say is that sometimes God uses it. So how that we don't neglect the gift that is given to you, which is by the prophecy, by the laying out of hands of the eldership. This is a whole talk by itself. I know we don't have too much time, but this, the servant, when we in the end of the year, so now we're at the end of the year, we start to plan for the next year. We do two things. One of the main things, we do evaluation of the service. And we used to sit and say, okay, what did I used to have a list from the previous year. Say, this is what I want to accomplish in the service. And usually in the new year, I do this, try to do the system. So we say, okay, in my personal life, in the family life, in the work life, and in the service. Some people have more, like some say, well, not married, so you have 3. And some people say, I don't have service, so they still have 3. So usually there's 3 categories. And every 3 months, I review. So in January, I do it. In the middle of the fast, I review. After the Holy 50, especially for the service, I have that time to examine the service. And then in the beginning of the Coptic year, so in this time. And that way, I keep myself accountable. I have checkpoints, and I see. So if I had the goal in the service that many years, I would say, okay, I want to do this project in this year. So I come by the end of the year, I said, it didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? I said, I tried this. So we try something else. So it's second year. Maybe it happened in the third year. Say, thank God. Then for the next year, what is my goal in the service? Or in the spiritual life, what is my goal? I want to read the whole Bible once or twice. I want to write this book. I want to read this. I want to fix this problem, this weakness. So how to put the agenda for myself, and then say in the Sunday, because we'll say, I want to do this. We want to have the spiritual outings and the retreats or whatever it is as a goal in my service. And I keep myself accountable. So this is just how to do that. This is maybe for another time. But how that we also, one of the other points, because I said I will go quickly in the servant meeting, we'll have to I'll have to be shorter because I'm skipping half of the talk and it's still very long. Dracontius was a monk, and he was called to be a bishop. And after they called him, seems right before the ordination or right after the ordination, he said, what did I do? So he left and went back to the cave. St. Athanasius wrote him a letter. he said, you have to come and serve. Because he was thinking, no, I'm a monk, I'm not a bishop. At the time, they used to have, because the monasticism was new, he lived with St. Anthony. So before St. Anthony, they would take the priest and they make him a bishop, most celibate priests. And so in his time, they started to select from the monks. So he said, no, some of the monks told him, what are you doing? You're a monk, you're not a bishop. So he believed them. So he went back to the cave. So St. Athanasius wrote a special letter for him, speaking about the calling that he has. And every servant has the same thing. Like, we're not serving in 2nd grade or 6th grade or pre-servants or hymns just because Abuna likes us and because Amina Khidman likes us and because Church of Saint. No, it's a calling from God. God said, I need you to take care of my children. Can you do that? We said yes. And we were very excited, especially when we were young. I'm going to do this and this. Then we get a little older. We said, I can't do all of this. I'm going to do less. And then we get a little older. We say, I can't do any of it. I need to know this. But if it's a calling from God, we say, yes. Give me the energy. Give me the wisdom. Give me the time. Give me the blessing and the grace. And I will do the service. And that's why we love the service, because we find Him in the service. But we need to believe this is calling from God. And that's why the reminder that St. Athanasius gave to Dracontius was the same reminder that St. Paul gave to St. Timothy. St. Timothy, he's a new bishop. He said the people, they don't like me that much. They don't treat, because he had St. Paul. And then they found a kid, very young, his 20s, as a bishop. They said, who is this? And also he wasn't like from the Hebrew. So there were some of the Hebrews, the culture there, and he was more Greek, right? Even by the name, he was half. So they thought that he's not full. He's not like 100%. He's like 50%. So they didn't treat him well. So St. Paul had to remind him, no, you were called to this, but stir up the gift that is in you. Because with the calling and the grace, God gives you seed when you start the service with all of the things that we need for the service. And we have to work and labor to produce the fruit from it. And we will find. That's why the servants say, I don't have this, and I don't have this, and I don't know about the language, and I don't know about their culture. I don't know about... One time I was sitting few months ago, said, I don't understand what any of the youth are saying now. Like when we were serving youth, of course we know exactly what they're saying, what they're listening to, but then I start to see, now we don't even know. And when you ask some of the older servants, like I'm saying, in their 20s, they don't know. I said, you don't know how am I supposed to know? So then in one of the conventions, I sat with some of the youth. I said, okay, tell me all of what are you saying to each other? One of the servants was saying she was listening to the two of the girls talking. She said, I didn't understand anything they're saying for 20 minutes, 30. It's like a different language. And that's how it is now. So when I started to review, now I feel like an expert. It was only 5-10 minutes. But if I have if you say one of those or two of those, they stop listening. Say, how do you know this? Like you are instantly in their bubble. Enough, just long enough in order to give them. But what I want to say is we receive the seeds. We have the means. But how do you get inside the life? Then we can do all of the work. Last story, I say one time there was a Abuna Bashar came and he was speaking with one of the youth for 2 hours. And he was trying to bring him back to the church. And nothing worked, nothing. So he said, okay, I'll take you home, I'll drive you home, tell me where you live. So when he was in the car, he started to sing a hymn. And then he found the youth crying. He said, what happened? I was talking with you for 2 hours in the Bible and nothing, and this song made you, I don't understand. He said, I remember this song when I was a very young boy, and I felt the difference. Before, when I was in the church, I was very happy, I was very peaceful, had family, and now I realized the difference. Just a reminder. So the hymn changed the heart. So sometimes it's certain, like I said, God gives different means by which we use to glorify His name. Glory be to Him now and ever into the age of all ages. Amen. So we gave you a headache, and after this, hopefully, we be able to sit for the new service. Usually, I told you at the end of the year, we review our spiritual schedule in our service and where we are. But also, we prepare for the new year. And usually, we spend some time in prayer and fasting. I know some of the churches, they used to have 3 days. I'm not saying that you have to do this. I'm just saying what they used to do. Whether it was in the time of St. Mary's fast, whether or not you do Wednesday and Friday, whether or not you see something before. They used to do this before the feast days where we're not supposed to fast. So we say we're fasting and praying for the whole year. And I know many servants, this changed their perspective in the service. And I give you an example, friend. One time I moved, when I went to law school, I left the first time the diocese, so I went to the East Coast. So I went, and after the first month, I came back to confess. So Abuna told me, which class are you serving? So I smiled. I said, I'm not serving. He got very upset. He said, you have to tell Abuna that you should serve. I said, Abuna, I can't I can't tell him. And of course, I said, first time that I'm not serving, so I can focus on my studies. He said, no, tell Abuna that I say that you must serve. So he knows I have to. So I have to go and tell Abuna very difficult. I was like, Abuna, sorry, I have a message from you from my priest, Father Confessions. He's telling you this, but you don't have to listen. You don't have to listen because I have studied. He said, okay, no problem. I will put you in this. So he put me in. I remember they did the assignment, so I had first grade. And I said, I never served first grade. I served in college and junior high and high school, and that's what I know. But I said, okay, I'll go to the first grade. So I went to the first grade. I asked the servant, I said, what do you do? I don't know when they start, when they sing the games, nothing. 5 minutes. I'm trying to find out. One of the servant came to me, said, excuse me, Abuna needs you. I told him I didn't do anything wrong. It was just 5 minutes. He said, no. The servant in the 6th or 7th grade, they need you immediately. Whoever was supposed to be there wasn't there. So I learned the lesson. I said, out of obedience, I went. I was going to try to do, if Abuna said first grade, who am I to tell him? I'm not going to tell him I used to serve this, and this. And many, we didn't have many servants at the time, so we were doing everything. But I didn't say anything. I said, let him choose. And it was for me a blessing. The children that I was serving in that year, I became very close for. Even some of them attended weddings and things. But what I want to say is that the servant is praying and fasting and submit whatever you ask for me, I will do. And God is the one adjusting. So if there is something that is not correct, let Him fine tune. Instead for me to think. And I may pray and say, I don't have peace. So if the servant doesn't have peace, okay. But once we distribute the service for you, at least I would say you try. And then if you don't have peace, if there's something not correct, come, let us know, and we will do it. So I agreed with Madame Mary and Abuna about the service for, I think, 99%. Maybe we're waiting for one. So I believe, really, that you have excellent servants and wonderful arrangement. So I don't expect there to be any issues. So we'll start, and I will send you the list once we finalize it, so it's clean, so you know what you will be serving in. And if anyone has issue, please let me know, and I will speak with Abuna and Madame Mary and see how we can adjust what we need to adjust. So agreed, easy, no problems. Any question for the service in general? I know we have the curriculum, and I just to remind you that we have in the app the lessons, and we have also, it can be in the website for the lessons, so for the curriculum. And one of the things we're doing the retreat, because I know that you're not all there, but we also developed resources for all of those lessons, the majority of the lessons. So every year we add resources. The idea for the resource is that it helps, especially in the beginning of the lesson and at the end of the lesson. The youth now, they need a lot of effort just to get their attention. So you will notice, and the servants who are talented, it need for us to be very creative and a lot of energy just for the first part, just to get their attention. But once you have their attention, you can give them a download. But if you don't have the attention, and we're saying the wonderful lesson, we lost everything. So it need for us to have some, so that's why we developed those resources. It's about 5 years old, some of the resources. So if you find you need new resources, please let us know. And if you have something good, you can add. So we gave a lot of recommendations. Now, we were trying to have a system so that if you're serving 8th grade, you can communicate with all the other servants who are in the other churches who are serving 8th grade. If you find a good book or resource or game or something that works, we have some churches, they develop many games on their own. Like they did what we did, and some of them did better. So we tried to find a way where we bring them together to benefit. Like one of the churches, they did like a Jeopardy. So they have it in the computer. Any church can use it. and they spend months to do it, with the videos and things like that. So there's a lot of resources. So when we come to serve, especially the older grade and the younger grades, it will be more helpful for that. Yes. For the yes, I have to find it, but it exists. It exists, and what I have to do is though, and it's good that I said I have to go back and put it in the app, so you have the link for it, because it should be there, and they update them. Like I know one of the churches when I was in Chicago, they do it every year, so they maybe have 20, 30 links. Because they do it every year, so they update it. So I can get from them with their permission and add them. Also for we're starting to do, just so you know, and I hope it will be ready by the end of the year. We were trying to do curriculum not just for the Sunday school, but also for Bible study, because Bible study we found that the Sunday school used to be all Bible, which was good. But they were missing some things in dogma and in history and in saints, so that's why we adjusted. The reason why we lessened some of the Bible and their general lessons was not because the Bible is not important, but the Bible is so important that we need another curriculum for it. So we've been working on this for a while, and some of the churches are already started using it, but it's in different. It still needs a little bit of modification. But God willing, we will have also that curriculum available. Some of the churches have another day, so they'll have like Friday for Bible or Wednesday for Bible, and they'll have Saturday or Sunday for the Sunday school. And I think, and it has its own team of servants, so maybe it's something that we can think about or in research, because I think that this will be very, very beneficial for we have in one of the church, I think in St. Athanasius, they have this too. So they have two teams of servants. And sometimes the kids don't want to go to Sunday school because they like the games and activities in the Bible so much. So we try to put more activities and games in the Sunday school so that it's balanced. That's how good the curriculum is for what they are using, but like I said, it needs some modification. So the servant can think and see, okay, how can we utilize this? There's also other, we have in St. Damiana in San Diego, they have a wonderful hymns curriculum. In the summer, they have a meeting every day, Monday through Friday. Even I was telling them, because to Sony, and I said, how do you do this every day? For 1 hour and review it. So when I go to the church, all of the kids are singing all of the hymns, like events hymns. So I even told them, I said, I would like for some of the other churches to see how we can utilize some of this. So we as servants, I know we can't do everything, but if you have 4 or 5 servants in one class, then maybe one can focus in hymns, one can focus in the Bible, one can focus in the Sunday school, one can focus on the retreats and spiritual days and things. So we can help. So the service is much. It's like it's a buffet. It's like when someone hungry, they give you a small plate. This is what we have. But then, like when I come here, you put everything. I said we can't eat all of this. but if the service is like this, they have so much. We have full meal. And I think, I tell you what, when we were about 10 years ago, 10 years ago, we were looking to study the curriculum. So I looked at all the curricula that was existing at that time, some in the Catholic, in the Syrian, in the Greek. And when I looked at them, I was very shocked that what we have, even at that time, 10 years ago, if you take second grade, far, far, far advanced than any of them, whatever the church, even Orthodox. And if you go in the junior high and high school, I mean, thank God, I'm saying something like St. Habib Girgis and like what the generations taught us, it really, we have something unique. And I say it's always because of the servants that we have, and we put the bar just like we want our kids all to go to the highest schools and highest grades, and we have to be over it. So the same thing in the Sunday school, we have it. And so always say we have a good Sunday school, but every year we make it better and more, and we add even to the point where sometimes the kids or the students are like, how can you teach this hymn in this grade? So we tell them, actually, we can. It just needs some work. And then after a month or two, he said, yeah, they learned it. He said, yeah, I know because they killed themselves and the servants, and they wouldn't sleep, and they went. But any challenge I saw, like I say, I was visiting in some of the churches, what the kids are memorizing and what they are saying and what far advanced, like the last in the spiritual competition, when I saw the debate. I was thinking to myself, I said in high school, when we were in high school, we didn't have we didn't know any of this. We knew of Saint Athanasius because our church was Saint Athanasius. But did we read any of the books? At the time it wasn't, it was not online. You can't find it. Like you have to find it only in one book, as I told you. So we are very grateful, like I said, and for your service and your contribution. And we ask God to continue to bless and more so that we grow in the service and working together. And we hope and we pray that we can pass this time so that the youth can always continue and see from your example. And we will then we know we have many saints, because if your dedication reach to them, we will be in very good hands. We see the future in very good hands. Any questions? Snap? Yes. Sure. No. There were some servants, they have some concerns, and so that's the reason why I came on Sunday. That's the reason why I'm here, until we pass this phase. There are some people, they thought, and they're still thinking, and I think Ambassador addressed it multiple times, that even like the reason for Abuna Yusuf leaving, or the reason for was related to Abuna. That's not the case. So, and later also the servants that had some concerns, it's not directed against they're directed against some of the principles in the service. And so that's why I came to see what we can do, and how we can do together. Because I assume, even if, like you said, we need Abuna to go, and I said, okay, Abuna's going to go. You think that's going to benefit anyone? I didn't say that didn't happen. That's not going to. But even if that were, you think that's not going to benefit anything. On the opposite, we go backwards. And I firmly believe that. I'll give you an example. Abuna Moros, he was the first priest in North America, and he was over 50 years as a priest. So in the 50th anniversary, they asked him, Abuna, what's your secret for the service? How did you endure? He said, very easy. He said, when the people asked me to stay, I stayed. When the people asked me to leave, I stayed. When there were problems in the church, I stayed. When there was no problems in the church, I stayed. So I endure in whatever the case very patiently. I do my job because God called me to go here. And truly, over time, I'll give you another example. When I was serving in 2003, Abuna Daniel Farag, he was the first priest to pass away in the diocese. And he was the only priest in that church for 13 years. And the people loved Abuna so much. He was a model, saintly priest. But they had no other priest. So when I went, Sayyidina asked me to go, he asked Abuna Macarius to go. I remember giving communion, people would come crying. Even kids, children. There was one of the boys I still remember. I had to hug him so he stopped crying because Abuna's not there. And he'd tell me, I miss Abuna's smile, I miss Abuna this. 5 years old, now he's in college, he's still in. But I remember thinking, it's very hard we spent over 20 years to make sure that none of those youth left the church. I'm telling you, there was no problem. But what happened in the second group, anytime Abuna Macarius come to do something, the group that's very close to Abuna didn't do it this way. Abuna didn't do it. So I tried to calm them. I said, don't worry, it's good. What happened after 5-10 years? The Sayyidina sent another priest. So the same people that were close to Abu Daniel, the new priest, we don't like the new priest. We like Abu Bakr. So I said, but before there was the same people that were saying they didn't like Abu Bakr. Same thing happened after. So I said, okay, we need to fix this problem. But in the end, like, we have the same with the kids in the Sunday school. In the beginning, we don't like this servant, we like the other servant better. And then after, by the end of the year, no, because we don't like change. We're Orthodox, we're Egyptian. Any change will be difficult. But the love conquer everything. And to the point where when we leave even just for the week, some of the kids, they miss you the entire week. And there are some of the kids, they don't even know you. Like I have one of the kids, he's blessed in, which church is he? Every time I go, he's hugging everyone. Like I see him coming. He doesn't know me. It's his first time. But he loves everyone. So I said, this is a good example of just the youth. You can tell that he loved his priest. Because any priest, he loved the priest. I said, this is what we want to teach. Any servant they come to, they're going to love the servant. And even if I know, say, in the next couple of weeks, I may leave to a different class. So I'm preparing them. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to be with you. I give you all the gifts. They're not going to like on the opposite. I would say, the one who's coming to serve you is much better if I know I'm leaving. And you're going to be very happy and you're very good. But I'm always here, whatever you need. So I know how to prepare for the next, instead of fighting with. Because if there's tension, even in the Sunday school class between two servants, all the kids know. They feel it and they're not happy, and then they learn how to play the games. And even they may make us say, that servant said this, and they did you know that they did this? So we don't want to teach them this game. We want to teach them how to overcome all of that, and that, because when they do that with us, even between the priests. They do that with it. Sometimes they want to make one priest. So we always fight against it. And we just always respond. Like when I would go on a visit, they want to say something negative against the other priest. I stop them. I state all of the good things about them. And he loves you and he cares for you. And I spoke to him about this. And please. And we talk about something else. Because if I open the door, it'd be very challenging. So we want to do the same thing here for the servant, because that spirit, it can go very far. It can make much damage, not just in the church, but in the soul, inside the person. That's the damage. And if that's the spirit, it can make much problem. But I know the people who have concern, like I was telling them the other day, how the respect in the priest, what does it look like? Because I was we were talking about the respect of the altar, respect of the church, respect of the priest, respect of the servant, respect of the parents. So it's all related. Because if they respect the parents, they're going to respect the priest. If they don't respect and honor the parents, it doesn't matter the priest, doesn't matter the Bible. So all of it is related together. So I was telling them in the respect of the priest. One time I will sit with a congregation or one of the priests, and they have a complaint against another priest. And I have to go to Ambassador. So I would spend maybe 20 minutes. How do I say? I can't say this. It's a priest. He's men of God. So how do I phrase it? So I try my best to be objective, put the points. And then I find almost all the time happens with me. And I sit with Sayyidina, I find schedule. I'm about to just say what I'm saying, and he says, 1, 2, 3. I said, yes. so I don't have to say it. That come to them. So then I say, okay, well, the solution is not the problem. What's the solution? So we spend all the time talking about the solution, not about the problem. And I think for us together, if we do this, we will find everything solved. Everything solved. But if we start going in details, just like in confession, sometimes in confession, we don't want to know the details. We say the category. We'll ask questions. The priest will only ask questions if the detail help for the solution. Like I may tell, when did this happen? Not that we say, who did this happen with, so I can go find the other people. No, we can't take any decision based on the confession. But for this, so when they know I ask a question, then okay, that's what needs a detail. But in general, the sin, it doesn't need that. But if I'm finding a solution, sometimes I need to see a couple things for the detail. But I believe, and I said when I sat with the servants too, I even told them all of these things can be solved very quickly and very easily if we just work with each other and listen to each other and love each other. Everything, there is nothing major. If there was major, I would tell you it's very serious and we have to do it. But no. You have very, I don't want to say, just like, when someone feels that, am I sick? I'm going to die. I'm going to go to the hospital. The doctor says, you are good. He says, no, I feel my heart is not, they have stress. But the doctor wants to calm them down and their stress, but your health is good. No, I can't sleep at night. The same reason. Could be from the anxiety. So we take breath, we relax a little bit, we go to the service, we start serving, we find, there's no problem. And all of the people, I'm telling you, like I sat with almost all of you, you are wonderful. Like there's no one says, we need to get this and move this. And No. You have good servants and good heart and good experience. But we just need to work with each other a little bit and be patient with each other. And all of the things can be solved. But don't give up on each other, because if you give up on each other, then we will have problems. Just like two people, they're married. We had one of the couples, and then we asked, well, what's the problem? He doesn't even want to talk. What's the problem? And you see that the woman is wonderful, but he may reach a point he just can't deal with. I said, there's no problem. There's no issue. And we may need to work with him more how to accept, because sometimes we have expectation in the service or perspective or experience. But we will work. And I remember the last thing, and I won't tell you too many stories. I remember when I went to DC, I told you the first time I moved. So I went, I said, very good. The one who's the priest, he's a monk. Because I wanted to be a monk, I said, I will do. One of the reasons why I'm very happy, I said, I go to this church, I'll be a monk, learn from him. After 1 month, Pope Shenouda called him to go back to the monastery. So I said, the monk left. No priest. One Sunday, I saw so many arguments because they don't have a priest and they're arguing over who should be the priest, and nobody is there to calm them. To the point where I remember one Sunday I said, I don't want to go to the church. Like, it's a new church, I don't know anyone. I go, and in the parking lot they're arguing over something, and they're arguing, there's no solution. It's not like they have a priest like Pope Shenouda is going to agree for what. They don't have any control. They're frustrated, and they're arguing. So then I remember praying in that time. I said, I would like if there's I'd love to have someone like Abuna B'Shakem. So God sent someone called Abuna B'Shoy. So I asked him, first question I said, Abuna, why did you, what are you named after? So he told me, he said, yes, it's Abuna B'Shakem. I said, okay, that's all I need to know. But when we pray that our service and our servants, all of us, like the same spirit, it will be fulfilled. We will find ourselves in a different place. And we will say in 10 years, 20 years, remember when we had this small thing and it passed? And then now look at the service. Look at all of the kids that we were serving. One, al-Khidma, the other one is doing this, the other one started a new church, the other one was ordained. Because you have kids who are going to be ordained, going to be Tasoni, all of that is there. So we want to look forward for this, not in today. We look 10, 20 years. You say, like when we have the servants prep. I want to say there are people, servants preps in Egypt, some of them, all of them were ordained. And if one missed, they say, what happened to to them? They're like 10. What happened to the 10th one? He wasn't ordained, we don't know why. So when we do the servant, we have that for the vision. We give them as much as we can, because we see what's going to be in the future. We ask our God to give us this so we can see His glory, and it will inspire us. Good, we pray, and then we see. Make us, O Lord, worthy to pray with all thanksgiving. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from Christ Jesus. Now may the love of God, the Father, the grace of His only begotten Son, of God and Savior Jesus Christ, the communion and the gift of the Holy Spirit, be with you those who wish to go in peace. Peace of the Lord be with you. So God willing, within a couple of days I will send you the list, and if you have questions, I will be leaving for Egypt, but usually we don't sleep in Egypt anyway, so I will try to see the messages when they are time. But if there's a delay, forgive me. We have the dialogue with the Russian church, so we'll go to Russia from Egypt. But and so that's why I'll be gone for a little bit, but we come back in the middle of next month. So a couple weeks. So hopefully, if there's something between now and Wednesday, we'll try to fix it. So there's no. Thank you. If you need something from Russia, let us know. I don't think you want anything from us. We want them to stop. Hopefully, by the time we go, they stop. They're being difficult. I think we had our fun.